Hello, my name is Mimi. Do you know that Excel is the #1 data analytics tool in the world? Regardless of your field, whether healthcare, automobile, retail, you can use Excel to analyze a lot of data set. There are thousands of things that you can do within Excel, but in this video, we're going to start from the basics so that you can understand Excel. There are thousands of jobs out there that only require Excel skills, and if you have the skill, then it gives you competitive advantage. When you launch Excel for the first time on your computer, this is the page that you're going to see. The top section here has the templates, different templates that you can use depending on your need. And you can click more templates here. It's going to show you all the other templates. You can search here. You can check them by the different buckets. I'll go back. This bottom section here just shows you all the recent files that you've worked on. So it's easier for you to get to the files. Instead of having to search on your computer, you can get to them here quicker. Let's say I want to work on the sales file more. I can pin it. When I click this, it's going to pin it. So now if I come here, I can see the sales file and I can just open it and start working from here. Now I'm going to come here and click this blank workbook. Now Excel has created a new workbook for us. If you notice that we have a bunch of all these boxes here, but they're so small and it's not going to be easy to see the text. So what you can do is you can click this plus button here. This is going to make it bigger. Now it's easier to see. You can click the minus, it's going to make it smaller. So let me click this plus button. If you notice here, we have all these alphabets here. All these alphabets are referred to as columns. So this is column G, this is column F. If you also notice, we have numbers. Numbers are the rows, while the alphabets are the column. So if somebody asks you, where is row 1? This is row 1. This is row 3. And this is column B. The intercept between this B and this 3 are the cells. So all these boxes, they're referred to as cells. So now I clicked, so you can click into any of those boxes. And if you notice here that it's saying B3, that is because I am on column B, row 3. Column B, row 3. If I go to a different one, now I'm in column E, row 4. So now you will see E4. By default, when you create a new Excel workbook, it's going to come with a new sheet. Like this one here shows sheet 1. That's the default. But you can rename this. Let's say I want to rename this to employees. I just need to double click it. And now I can give it a new name. I'm going to call it employees. And click enter. Now I have this worksheet. You can have as many as you want. Let's say I'm interested in creating another one. I just need to click on this plus button here. You see it says new sheet. I just click it. Now I have sheet 2, and you can give this another name that you want. I'll go back to the first one. Besides giving it a name, you can give it a color. Let's say this is for one department and you want to have a different color than the rest of the tabs. These are called tabs, and they also referred to as sheets. So I can right click here and say, okay, go to tab color. I want this to have a nice green color. And if I come here, you can see now that I have this green color. Let's go back here. Sometimes you have a workbook and some tabs are not needed to be seen by the business people. Maybe it's just for you, for your calculation, and you just want to hide it. You hide it so that when you send them the file, they won't see it unless they unhide it. So how can you hide a sheet or a tab? What you can do is to right click on the tab that you want to hide and just say hide. Now it's hidden. If I want to go back to it, I just right click on any of the rest of the tabs and I go to unhide. Excel is going to show you all the sheets or tabs that are currently hidden. Now because I only have one, I have the sheet 2. I can click OK. Now I can see it again. So let's go here. Sometimes you're working with files that already have data, and many times you also need to add some data to it. So how do you enter data into Excel? Let's say I want to add data here. What I can just do is to click on it. So any of the cells here that you want to add data to, just click into it. And now I want to add employee name. I'll click tab or the arrow key to go to the next cell. Now I want to add the hire date. I'll click tab. Now I want to come here. Let's start adding the information, employee information. Let's start with John Yu. John Yu was hired January 4th, 2022. I'm going to paste the rest of the data. But if you notice here, I don't see this person's name it's not showing all of the names. And I also see here, if I click it, I can see that this person was hired December 20th, but it's showing me pound. In Excel, anytime you see this pound, it means that the date is not able to fit into the column. And let's say I just widen this a little bit, you hold here and you drag. Now we can see the date. But many times you'll be working with a lot of columns and you don't want to be dragging one by one. So let me push this back so we can see the pound. What you need to do is to click here on the side here. This is going to highlight all your data, and you just have to go between one of your columns. So I'll go between A and B. When I see this arrow, I just double click, and when I double click, you can see that now I can easily see the names. I can easily see the dates as well. This will automatically fit your data into the column. Somebody might ask you, how many records do you have in your file? You might want to scroll and scroll. This is fine because I only have few records here. But in real life, you might have a lot, thousands of records. Instead of you having to scroll, Excel has something called the status bar, which is at this bottom here. Notice that if I highlight one of my column, it's going to show you the count. So now this is telling me that I have 22. But one gotcha is that we have 22, but that's not true because this also includes the employee name. So a quick way to get to your count or your averages or your sum is to use the status bar. This is going to show you, but you have to remember to remove the headers. That is, if your data has an header, like mine has this one, I have to remove one and say, oh, I currently have 21 records for employees. So this is called the status bar. If I have something that can be added, if you notice here, Excel is, now I click on hire date, it's trying to sum it for me. It's trying to count. It's trying to give me an average. When you have numbers that can be added, Excel will give you here on the status bar. So a quick way to get your sum, your count, is to use the status bar. But keep in mind that you have to remove the column headers. Like in my case now, I only have 21 records, but Excel status bar is showing me 22. That's because it has counted the headers. So I just say, oh, I have 21 employees. Many times your headers, right now it's hard to tell the headers from the name. You might want to give it a different color. Let's say I want this to have probably a yellow color. I just need to highlight it. And when you highlight, you can give this, you can highlight it in yellow, you can make it bold, you can increase the font by coming here and say I want it to be bigger or I want it to be smaller. So you can do any test, anything that you want to do to your test. You can change the font here and say I want it to use this agency font. Sometimes you might need to add a new column. Right now, let's say, oh, I forgot to add the gender, and I want the gender to go between these two columns right here. What I just have to do is to click on this one because I want this to shift back. So I'll click on it, I'll right click, and I'll say insert. So this is going to give me a new column here, and now I can give this gender and say, okay, John is male, this person is female, and I can keep going like that. Many times you'll be working with a lot of data in your file, right? Notice that when I scroll, I have scrolled past those headers. It's hard for me to tell what is this column again because I scrolled past this column name here. What you just have to do, you want those headers to stick. So what you have to do is to go where it says view at the top here. And here it says free span. So if I click it, I can say free stop row. So when I click that and I scroll, I can still see the header. Now let's add a new column. Let's say we want to add a column that shows the remaining leave hours. So I'm going to paste the values here. So let's give this an leave hours as the column name, leave hours. Remember the status bar now, because now we have numbers, we can see the sum. So this is showing us the total leave hours for those people is 1,000 plus, and the average is 50. So this is where you can see all of this information here. Next, let's say that we want to, for some reason, we're just happy, we want to give people new leave hours plus whatever they already have. We want to give them 10 more extra. So To calculate the new leave hours for each person, we need to write something called formulas. So in Excel, we write formulas. So to write formulas, we need to go into the column where we want the formula to go. So let's say I want it to go here. I'm going to click it and I'll say equals. Equals what? I want to add the leave hours that they currently have plus 10. So I'm going to click into this and say, see, when I click it, Excel says D2. That's because I clicked in D column and second row, so D2. So if I just click enter, it's just going to show me the same number here. But remember, we said we want to add 10. So I'm going to go back and say plus 10. Now when I hit enter, this has added 72 plus 10. So now for us to do it for the rest of the people as well, you just need to put your cursor here. If you notice, it has changed to plus. So the plus sign, and you just double click. Now Excel is going to automatically do plus 10 for everyone. And you can confirm 45 plus 10 is 55. Now, if I mistakenly delete this column here, then I'm going to get an error. So if I say delete, now we see that we have this ref error. Anytime you have a ref error in your file, this tells you that Excel is trying to reference something that it's not there anymore. It's trying to reference the column for that calculation, but because I already deleted the column, it's not able to do what it's supposed to do. So let me do Ctrl Z. Now it's back. What I need to do, if I don't want to show the formula, I don't want people to know that I added 10 here. What I can do is I can click on the column here, right click and say copy. And then I can click on F, or I can still click on the same place and right click and say, see, if I come here, paste options. Paste options, we have different options here. This particular one is paste by values. So see, it says 1, 2, 3. If I put my cursor, it says values. Values is going to get rid of the formula. So if I click that, see, now the formula is gone. And now if I delete this column, I don't get any error. So anytime you don't want to get that ref error when you delete the column, you need to paste by values. So now I can say, okay, this is now the new leave hours. But similarly, if you still want them to be able to see the old one, you can hide that column. So let me do a Ctrl Z. So let's say I don't want to get rid of this column. Though I see the formula here, I don't want to get rid of this. I can hide this column so that people don't see 2 leave hours. I can hide this one. So to hide it, you right click and you go here, say hide. So now it's hidden. So I can now say this is the new leave hours and click enter. To unhide this, you just highlight those 2 columns because this is where I want to unhide, and I right click and say unhide. So now I can still see it. So you have to, because you don't want to confuse your users. So don't show them 2 leave hours. So if you want to still keep this original one, then you have to hide it so that people are not confused with your report. Let's add a new column that shows if an employee has been terminated or if they're still active with the company. I'm going to put the data. Okay, now that we have this, let's give it a header. So we'll say active. Somebody might ask you, how many employees do we currently have that are active? You might be tempted to start going through them and counting 1, 2, 3, but that's going to be a lot of work, especially when you have a lot of rows. What you can do is to use something called the filter. Make sure you're on the Home tab and you go here where it says Sort and Filter. Click on Filter. And that's going to add all those little boxes to all your columns. And you just need to go to that one that is going to answer your question. For us, it's going to be this active column. So I just click that little box and I can remove. To remove something, I want to remove those that have been terminated. I'm just being asked to count how many active people. So I'll remove this one. To remove it, you just uncheck the box and you click OK. So now you can use the status bar again. If I click it, remember this is saying 13, but we know we have to remove this. So this is actually 12. And if you don't want to do the math of removing one every time, you can just highlight your data here, and this is going to show you the right number. This is showing 12 now because the headers is not counted. And you can clear your filter by just clicking the box again and clicking clear filter, and you can filter any of your columns here. Okay, doing this filtering one by one can be a lot of work when you need to answer different questions. There's something called pivot table. Pivot table is one of the most common operations that you can perform in Excel. It's just a way to summarize your data. That way you can answer some business questions. And to do that, you just make sure you click anywhere in your data and you go here where it says insert and you click pivot table. Excel is going to automatically highlight all your data that you clicked in, and it's going to ask you, where do you want me to put the pivot table? Do you want me to put it in a new worksheet? Remember, worksheets or sheets or tabs, or do you want me to put it in an existing worksheet? I want it to go in a new worksheet, and I'll click OK. If you notice, Excel created a new worksheet for me, and to the right here is going to show you all your columns, including those that are hidden. Remember that we hid this leave hours, and now Excel gave us leave hours too. That's because they have the exact same name. If you don't want it to have duplicate name, then we'll have to go back to that table and make changes to the name. So let's go back here and let's give this one, instead, this is the new one. Let's give it a name, employee hours new. So you can make changes to your table. So now that we have given this one the new name, let's go back here. And this has still not changed to the new name that we gave it. To make it change, you have to right click on your pivot table and do refresh. Now, if you notice, after we refresh, now we have the new name. So we have all those 4 buckets. How do we know what goes into which one? The way to remember is anytime that you want something to show on your pivot table on the row, like each row, you want to see that value, then you are going to drag it into rows. Let's say we want to see each employee, their name, then we're going to drag it here in the row section. That's why we have it here. Now we see each employee name. What if we want to see each gender? Let's say we want to count how many employees in each gender, then we'll drag gender here too. Now we see female and we have male. If you want to count how many employees are male or female, then you just drag employee name here. Automatically is going to count it for you. Now you see count of employee name. We have 8 female and we have 13. If you want to change this here that says count of employee name, if you just want to make it say count, then you come here, click on this arrow and go where it says value field settings and change the name here. So I don't want it to say count of employee names. I just want it to say count. I'll say okay. Now we can see the name has changed here, count. So for columns now, this one is anytime you want to see your rows, but you want to see it by another category. Let's say I want to see how many people are active, how many people have been terminated, then I will need to drag this active into this column section. That way you can now see, oh, we have 5 female that are active, we have 3 that has been terminated. This is going to break it down for you. So for filters is you want to remove things, you want to include things in your calculation here. Let's say we want to only show certain employee names. So I'm going to drag it here and say employee name. And by default, Excel will include everybody. So you see where it says all, you can change it and say, okay, I want to remove some people here. So I'm going to click on select multiple items. And here, let's say we don't want to see Angelina. We don't want to see, you can uncheck. You uncheck people that you don't want included and click OK. Now, if you notice that the count has reduced, now we are at 18. So anytime that you see this filter as this mark, that means that some items have been removed. You can also see the total leave hours that they have for each category. Now that we have this active here, anything that I drag into this value section is going to split it out by this column here. So let's drag the new one. Let me drag it here. And if you notice, we'll still see that we have, let me remove this filter and let's make sure we have everybody and click OK. We have 5 female and the total leave hours for them is 406. So if you notice that this one has 1396, that's the total for this people in this category, but it's not easy to say is this 1000 or 13,000. It's nice when you format your data. So to format this data, you just go to the column here. So we know it is this one. Click that down arrow again and go to settings, go to number format and click number. We know that leave hours, if we wanted to have decimal, then we can leave this as 2 decimal. But if we know that it's going to be a whole number, then we can remove the decimal. We don't want it to have decimal. We want it to have this comma separator. So you check this box and click OK. And click OK. Now, if you notice that this is nicely formatted for us. One of the nice things about pivot table is that not only does it show you the summary, but it also lets you get to the basic data that is being used in the summary data. So, for example, let's say somebody is asking me, okay, can you show me all those 5 female that is made up in this category? All I have to do is to just double click and this will show me the basic information. And keep in mind that this information is coming from this data right here. So if I go back, it's going to show us the name. These are all the female that we have. It's going to show you all the respective columns. And to go back, let's say we're interested, I'll go back to the pivot table. We're interested in seeing the male, and then I just click here and now I can see those male that are active because I clicked on the active one. To see the terminated one, you just click the terminated one. So this will show me all the male that have been terminated. And now let's go back to our pivot table. So for pivot table, you have different options. If you go up here, you see where it says design. You can change the design. Right now it's this color. If I want, I can give it a different color. Say I want green. You can change the design of your pivot table here on this design tab. And lastly, let's go back to our data real quick. And there's something in Excel called conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is another common one. It's just a way to easily show your data. For example, you can make it color red, color white, color black, depending on your data. Let's say we want to, everybody that is active, we want to show them as green, and those that are terminated, we want to show them as red. All we have to do is just to highlight our data. Make sure you highlight all your data, and you go here where it says conditional formatting. Highlight through, there are different options here, but we want to highlight the cell where it is equal to. So let's start off with active. We just type in active in this box and we want to say active. We have different options here. We can create a custom and say, okay, anything that is active, we want it to be gray. I'll click OK. And I'll click OK. Now it's green. So let's do the same thing for terminated. We'll go back to conditional formatting. We'll go to highlight equal to. So those that are terminated, let's choose a custom one. We want it to have this red and say OK and say OK. Now it's easier for anybody to see that those that are terminated are shown in red. Thanks for watching. Remember, this is just the beginning to Excel. In subsequent videos, I'm going to go into more things that you can do within Excel. I'll see you next time. Bye.